All right, let's get this party started.
Listening to Evil Dojo Dark Mage in the house with the sick flow. Listening to Evil Dojo Dark Mage in the house with the sick flow. Listening to Evil Dojo Dark Mage in the house with the sick flow.
Hey, I need my motherfucking coffee. Ain't not a person in the world who can stop me. The corporate world is the devil, I am godly. When I got my coffee, I'm the motherfucking top B. Coffee. Ain't not a person in the world who can stop me. The corporate world is the devil, I am godly. As long as I got my coffee, I am the motherfucking top B. I need my motherfucking coffee. Ain't not a person in the world who can stop me. The corporate world is the devil, I am godly. As long as I got my coffee, I am the motherfucking top B. I need my motherfucking coffee. Ain't not a person in the world who can stop me. The corporate world is the devil, I am godly. As long as I got my coffee, I am the motherfucking top B. I need my motherfucking coffee. Ain't not a person in the world who can stop me. The corporate world is the devil, I am godly. As long as I got my coffee, I am the motherfucking top B. the world who can stop me. The corporate world is the devil, I am godly. As long as I got my coffee, I am the motherfucking zombie. I need my motherfucking coffee. 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 Yeah. I need my motherfucking coffee. Ain't not a person in the world who can stop me. The corporate world is the devil, I am godly. As long as I got my coffee, I'm the motherfucking zombie.
Od zodamy ranu, oto cikale ga. Zodoreže lape, zodile do nocomata. Hota, jaj, ajdia. Kasi ja te vodaje, Agitava o pau e sono con un fai per stalatori folle.
ラと繰り返し去るさだ俺におるならばペイ理解したびをそどるごろラペンはぬたろせこれさたげおこまにるいやいどんとがれそうどええぞだかれががのこだそうだめらぬみからそうだそうだめば俺らラペゾでやいや
Greetings. Welcome to the Evil Dojo. The fuck is everyone doing? What y'all up to? It's time for us to do some fucking Rust. We had some breakthroughs yesterday. It was a big deal. Shout outs to Dulce for helping out. I don't know Rust that well, but I mean, maybe I know some of it, right? And there always gets to a point where you realize there's a thing that you want to be able to do, but you don't know quite the syntax for it. And the process of discovery, of figuring out what that syntax is, in many ways is kind of like the real meat of computers, right? Like programming. Because as I've mentioned many times before, most of my students struggle the most with syntax for any like given problem, right? I've gotten good at like picking shit up over time, but it is a grind, and many people will just like the make or break point is like whether or not you give up. You know, if you stop trying to figure some shit out, it's okay to take breaks. If you need to put pause on something and come back to it later, yeah, it's like whatever. But the real make or break point for like programmers or like picking up any new skill to begin with is whether or not you keep going with it and whether or not you actually quit. What's up, Mats? How you doing, man? I don't know why H1 Ghosts chat didn't show up. That sucks. Maybe it was because he fired like 3 chats in a row real rapidly or something. I don't know. I said I'm going to do some Rust, so we're going to do some Rust. In particular, there's at least one very specific thing I want to do, like right now, while it's still fresh in my brain. First I gotta find the thing over here, and then I gotta fork this thing, and that's forked, because we're gonna create a pull request. I'm gonna create a pull request. Y'all are gonna watch me make a pull request. But I say we because we're doing this together. You know, it is the collective we. It is the royal we. You know what I mean? Like, there is a big difference between speaking from the perspective of like I versus we. And sometimes like people have called me out on this, and it's like, I'm not schizophrenic. At least I think. Not yet anyway. But at the same time, there is like a reality to like this idea that as a group of people we should do things collectively a certain way, right? And so when you're teaching or you're like providing guidance or you're demonstrating, to like confer this idea that the thing that you're showing is a thing that like maybe more than one person will encounter, then you have this sense of shared experience between like an audience, and it's like we all went through the same things together. That's ultimately like kind of why I speak that way sometimes, because when we're programming, see, I just did it. When we're programming, we're all engaging in this like way of thinking where the things that like one person runs into, like the kinds of problems that they deal with, are problems that other people are also going to deal with. And so there's this collective shared experience of having run into the same things. So that's one reason I do that. But okay, so I cloned this repo just now, so I need to copy it. Or I need to clone it rather. And last night or yesterday when I did this, I was editing like a cached cargo file, but this time we're going to actually edit like the real file in the real repo that it came from, because the dude was like, if anyone decides to make any pull requests, I'll continuing work on the library, and here we are. I have a real want to use this thing, and I've already had to like make small little fixes to it. So let's do some small little fixes right now. FNS. Okay. And I think Copilot's disabled by default, so that's just like my own workflow. Like, too often I've booted up neovim with Copilot enabled by default, and like I start typing and it start auto-completing, and it's auto-completing shit that has nothing to fucking do with the code that I'm trying to write. So I said, fuck it, I'm going to turn Copilot off by default. And as it turns out, I believe this is more efficient because you're not firing off as many requests to the LLM. So it ends up being a good thing. Let's see. I decided to also, this is a YouTube exclusive stream because I'm really fucking sick and tired of how stupid the Twitch chat community is. And by stupid, I don't necessarily mean like individuals are literally dumb or anything like that. But I keep getting hit with bots. Like really annoying fucking bots that just shit up my experience and just get me into a bad mood. And I don't want to be in a bad mood when I'm doing this shit, man. That's like, obviously putting yourself out there invites potential for harassment and trolls and things like this. And I could deal with that in certain contexts, but that's how I'm dealing with it, is by actively pruning out Twitch from that experience. And now we just focus on YouTube, because honestly, I've got much more, like, not only viewership over here, but just like engagement. Like, more people chat over here than on Twitch. I have more average viewers on YouTube than Twitch. I have more subscribers on YouTube than Twitch, even though universally agreed upon, like, most people will say that the Twitch chat experience is kind of like, quote, better. I don't necessarily think so. Perhaps it's a little bit cumbersome. I mean, that said, I actually really like that Twitch's chat backend is done in IRC. You knew that, right, Dulce? You knew that Twitch chat's backend is IRC, right? Because, like, it's very easy. It's so much easier to create, like, a bot or, like, create some sort of, like, external third-party application that interacts with chat. And so you can do things like make Twitch game controls that, like, a collective chat group can control Pokemon or something like that, right? Autocomplete actually, see, I've been using Copilot far longer than any of the other LLM tools, and my experience has been, generally speaking, really good. Especially in the beginning, I with my typing situation over here, I found that autocomplete, like that's really what Copilot is in a lot of ways, is autocomplete on crack. But you can also work with it in a similar way as to how you say, like any of the agentic coders, and you can actually write code in a way where like you write the comments beforehand and you kind of give it instructions and then it starts to fill shit in, and it's usually pretty good. Like more often than not, like I fuck with Copilot, so I can't speak negatively on that front, but sometimes it does kind of like go bananas sometimes, and it'll just like stub out like huge blocks of text when, generally speaking, I wish it would operate more on a line by line basis, and I wish I had some I wish I had some level of configurability over that kind of thing. That said, though, see, it's like I've only been live 23 minutes. We already got 4 views. We got 3 concurrents. We got average view duration of 15 minutes. God damn, y'all fucking rock. I can't say I've seen any of those kind of numbers on Twitch, even though that's where I got affiliate first. That said, the naming system between the two systems is fucking stupid. You know, like, maybe I'm gonna have to make my own fucking video site at some point. Like, I don't know. I just don't know. Is this the way? Do you know the way? Dude, so, oh god, I have something to say about LeetCode. This bothers me. My neighbor, the developer, is really, first of all, he's much younger than me. He's like 10 years younger. But we have a lot to teach each other as a result of this. He's very convinced that like LeetCode is like what most corporations use to actually choose to hire coders. And I was like, okay, I'll sit down to LeetCode and try it out. I got fucking stumped as fuck on the easy problem. Jesus. Like the very first fucking LeetCode problem, I was like kind of scratching my head there, dude. Like, and I ended up solving it, but my solution was super suboptimal. So LeetCode has this analytics graph after you actually like submit a solution, and it tells you like how performant your code is versus like other solutions, which is really cool on one front, but it was also really depressing because I saw how exactly much slower my solution actually ran, and I couldn't help myself. I had to cheat. I had to look at a solution to compare like what like the fast solution was. You know, I was too like intrigued by the performance difference that instead of taking the time to actually try and optimize, I looked ahead. I do apologize. However, I had to follow my curiosity. And the solution was like not exactly intuitive out the gate. It's the kind of thing that like I feel like you would have had to have seen before because deriving the solution was kind of like an interesting thing. And a lot of the LeetCode things almost suggest this level of pattern and problem like recognition. So I used to do like academic programming when I was in high school and like early college. When I say academic, I mean like competitive. And, you know, I was in a few different programming contests and, you know, I did okay in them and what have you. But like the state of the art between like 2004 and 2025, 21 years since I entered college, right? I graduated in about 2008. My paper degree says 2011. That's a whole nother story. But a lot's happened between point A and point B. And so I wasn't doing academic programming competitions during that time. I wasn't grinding on that so much as actually building real shit. And my friend's argument against LeetCode is that you're not actually building anything by solving these problems. You're not actually learning real world skills to actually creating real applications. And there is something to that. There is a big difference between like academic level problem solving and building shit. You know? There is an interrelationship, but they are, at the end of the day, very different skill sets. However, I don't think you get to one without the other. You know, they're kind of interrelated on that front. Like, problems that you run into building real applications can have analogs to academic programming exercises. So what's the fix I'm about to propose here? Because I did this the other night. So in another tab, I'm going to go into the code that I was working on last night. We had to do a fix for measure text, right? Oh, I hear that, dude. No, if you're like bored at work, that fucking sucks. That super sucks. If you're just churning at, and that's another thing about building things too, because at a certain point, when you're building stuff, you're no longer really solving problems so much as like re-implementing solutions that you've already come up with, right? And that kind of sucks. Yeah, real talk. Like, that's no fun. If you're not like growing or learning or getting an opportunity to fuck with new shit, or like stretch your brain in any sort of fashion in your corporate day-to-day job, that fucking sucks. I can't tell if that was someone lightly knocking at my door or if it's someone just stumbling around upstairs. Yeah, that sucks if you're like not learning anything at your job, doing it as what it is that you do. At that point, you're starting to become kind of like a code monkey, like a cog in the machine. You're just moving the things around and you're not actually like doing anything other than that. You're just spinning. It's not exactly fun. So we actually had to do two things. We had to implement measure text, and we also had to implement load texture. And the whole reason we had to do this is those functions weren't present. And for the situations where we have a function that like I actually ran into this by learning and understanding like how Rust deals with strings and how we convert those strings for use with a C library that we're attempting to call from within Rust. So like load texture, this is coming from a big old thing or declaring all the different Raylib.h functions, and So like we have the normal load texture in Raylib, but then we have to do a wrapper around it. We got this load underscore texture that takes a Rust string, a reference to a string or a string slice. Is there something about like not knowing how big the string is at runtime? And what ends up happening is we do this kind of thing. We first declare a mutable texture that's just empty outside of shit. And following the pattern that this dude did, what we do is we have this function called run with cstring, where we can take file name as bytes as parameter, and then we can pass a function, an anonymous function, as a parameter to that run with cstring function. And so by taking the mutable t and then just loading texture into it with file name as a pointer, it works. Because load texture only takes actually a constant char pointer. So this will actually work, and then we step outside of the function and we can just return t at that point. So we're going to copy over, and we had to do this with measure text too. So pretty much like any function that takes a string as input, or at least like the C string, we're going to have to do something like this. So I want to push this to this repo. I created a fork of mine, so now in that fork over here, I gotta check out a new branch. Measure text and load texture. So from over here, I think the easiest way to do this is going to be to open up the game file that I did yesterday, or that I was working on. And then from over here, we go down to measure text. We can just control, control right brace in order to hop into the definition. I find the idea of being in a management role, or a role where you actually have like developers under you, kind of interesting. In a way, I've done this through tutoring, but I've never actually like led a real project like that before. At a certain point, there's like, it's like, I get this level of anxiety because it's like, even in like a situation where you have like only one other person that you're working with, asking them to do a thing and then having to wait for them to do the thing. Like, I want to be able to build in a way where I don't have to wait on someone else to do something. Like, it would be nice to like be able to just create a big list of tasks and then like start whittling through those tasks and be able to like assign dependencies on the task, so that like one task might depend on another to be done first. You know what I mean? So, okay, so we hopped over there. Now we got our 3 files open. So this is the one that we're updating. Copy this over. Oops. All right, so there's our updated version. Oh yeah, we don't want to change that. Although the formatter kind of did that for me without. All right, so over here, we're gonna copy. Now what happened? I mean, why did it like? That's weird. Like over here it did that, and then over there it did that. Oh wait. Sorry, copy that whole thing. Boom. And it's still doing that. Okay. Nice. I don't know. How do you... I don't know how to do fucking... Okay, it worked. Yeah, we managed to build it. We're good. Oh, absolutely. I don't know how many projects you have, but in the every time I've worked for corporate, they generally only ever gave me like one project at a time, which I got bored pretty fast, actually. Yeah, it gets to a point where you start looking for things to do, like ways to like make things better. All right, so now I push this. Awesome. I just created a pull request. It's also raining now. Jesus. Oops. Okay, so we just created our first Rust pull request. I don't know Rust. I'm making pull requests. I mean, I know it well enough, apparently. Yeah, I mean, like the step between senior dev and project manager seems pretty, like, like it seems like a natural move from one to the other. Because I think realistically, any good PM should have been a developer at some point and should have like enough experience to know, like, what the best thing is to do and where. And at the same time, it creates an interesting problem for me because I've always been full stack. I started out freelancing as a solo developer on a team of like 4 or 5 people where it was like graphics artist, me, developer, project manager, and I don't know how you would call the last role. It was like another project manager. It was like, and there was so much they didn't know. And all they cared about was making money. They didn't care about making a really cool thing. I think the real way to make money is to make really cool things. If your primary motivation isn't correctly aligned, then you know you're in a position to potentially do great evil. That said, I kind of like instruction at times, but I also like building shit too. Man, it's raining hard as fuck. If the stream goes out, I do apologize. We have had power outages before. That said, I just rearranged a couple of my pieces of equipment last night. I moved the network switch over closer to my actual desktop so that I could get the PS5 on hardwire, and the only thing is if the internet goes out, then it's like no amount of power saving and shit that I'm doing is going to matter. Although, technically speaking, I need to reroute some of these Ethernet cables in order to properly make use of my power surger, or my surge protector. Hopefully it doesn't rain for too long. Alright, so now that we made that fix, I don't know where it knows to like actually pull these from. Like, how do you actually get a project into like the cargo like repo. You know what I mean? All right. Where did we leave off? What am I doing today? Okay, this is all pretty straightforward. One of the things that we need to do, though, like to continue the work that we were doing yesterday, nice. Yeah, I was saying earlier about like Twitch chat. One of the things I wish was easier with YouTube was like actually integrating like the ability to like pull chat out into like the terminal, because I can do that very easily in Twitch because it's IRC protocol. But there's not only like a fuck ton of shit that you have to do on the YouTube API side in order to like enable that ability to begin with, but also you have to pay for fucking API credits. That's ridiculous. I don't know how much, but I noticed that after I like enabled the features, it said like, oh, your API credit limit is 0, and I'm like, why? I like applied to extend it, and I haven't really heard back yet. So, but if it's inexpensive, I think that would be cool. Because then, yeah, I could like bridge YouTube chat into IRC, vice versa. Okay, to extend what we were doing yesterday. There we go. So we have the ability to load texture now. But we need a place to actually keep all these textures that we're going to load. At the moment, we're just kind of hard coding in a texture into the state. But what we really want over here is not just one texture. We actually want like a dictionary of textures. So I added no auto lint to Aider, and so far the experience is okay. No more giant annoying fucking outputs, or at least not for the linting front. Here, I will actually Oh yeah, I ran into this last time. Something is broken in my Python 3. Eleven two. I know there's like a more current version, right? What's the current Python? Oh, it's 3.13. It's 3.13. But this is the version that like ships with Debian, so I don't want to break anything. Okay, fuck it. We'll just roll with the default. Oh, sick. I didn't tell it to make any changes. I should have changed into a new branch before I did this. I have not yet lowered temperature because I, one, didn't know you could do that, and two, I don't know what temperature does. It did multiple fucking check-ins. Okay, we're only one ahead now. What does it look like I'm working on? Did you just get here? If you just got here, let me know you just got here, and I'll explain. But I don't just answer what I'm working on every time someone asks what I'm working on, because that gets exhausting. If you're just showing up, I just made a pull request to a Rust Raylib WASM library. And now I am working on a game template in Rust with Raylib. So let me continue, because I'm in the middle of problem solving right now. And every time someone asks what I'm doing in the middle of problem solving, it fucks me up. I'm having to roll back changes that my agentic AI coder just made without me telling it to. I'm a little bit annoyed. Exactly, yes. Not exactly conflict, but rather rolling back changes that Aider, my agentic AI companion, made without me telling it to. I was asking it, what are the C++ equivalents of a vector and an unordered map in Rust? And instead of just answering the fucking question, which is one reason that I want to have a separate thing open instead of using Aider for asking questions, is for things like this. So at least with my script, I'm a programmer of many things, but I like C++ a lot. I've done a lot in it in the last few years. I feel like I've gotten pretty good. I'm also a C programmer. I have the total ability to handwrite like a lot of my own data structures if I really, really wanted to. One of the reasons I swapped back up to C++ is because I kind of like finally wrapped my mind around the STL and why it's awesome, and why I don't have to hand roll my own shit in C anymore. And you can still maintain like a C style of coding while using C++. Similar with Rust as well. So I had a revelation about how the borrow checker works in Rust recently, and now I'm like feeling more confident in actually sitting down to like learn it and try it out. So that's where I'm at. What kind of programmer are you? Talk to us about your background. You know, I'm always interested in like the background of my chatters. Like I want to know, like, because like as an example, Dulce is a real interesting character. He's a Lisp programmer of all things, and he's an Emacs user. So he's just giving the fucking middle finger to God and Jesus Christ, and I like that shit. You know what I mean? Like because the people that invented those languages were absolutely blasphemous. Although not without good intent. Lisp is kind of like the epicenter of like artificial intelligence in a lot of ways. It was originally developed at MIT in the 1970s at the advent of like the very beginnings of AI research. Third year computer science student, dude. That's awesome. I loved my third year. Year 3 was like where I really had to level my shit up. Because up until that point, I was just coasting. I felt like I knew everything, and everything just kind of came easily to me. But by year 3, shit really hit the fan in a way where I realized that I actually had to work hard. I actually have to grind. I actually have to learn shit. I have to take time to do shit. I could no longer get away with waiting until the last minute to do assignments or projects. I realized then I had to start when the assignment was given. So as soon as class let out, even before class let out, I was like, they would give us a sheet of paper with the assignment on it, all the information that you need. I consume the fuck out of that shit, take notes, start handwriting code in class before I even get out of class, before it, before the 50-minute lecture's up. And thankfully I worked in the CS department, so like I could literally do homework while I was getting paid to wait around for people to ask me questions. So it was kind of a good time. But at the same time, I did bomb like my first CS class, and that was a really big bummer. That was really the wake up call for me, that like, oh shit, I really have to like step my game up. So I hope your game is stepped up. I may or may not have done a little bit of prologue, like a teeny tiny bit of prologue. Prologue was kind of intense. It had a very specific application and use set. So like the people working with it are doing really novel but also technically inconvenient for most people type things. Second semester of third year, nice. Do you have an idea of what you want to do when you graduate? Because originally what I wanted to do was go into grad school and do research. I wanted to go into computational linguistics. I wanted to find a way to merge my love of things like Japanese and just like language learning in general. Because at the time I was actually like on the side, low key, like in my spare time, every so often I would like fuck around with Elvish and Orcish, you know, like Lord of the Rings languages. Because most people don't know that J.R.R. Tolkien actually created the books to create a world for the languages that he created. He actually created the languages first. I think that's like super fucking massive level commitment to world building. Most people aren't that committed to world building. You might be able to pick out 5 other people in history that have put that level of emphasis and detail into anything. GPU programming is kind of, it's interesting to me, but I'm not like good at it. One of the projects I worked on senior year was tangent to GPU stuff though, right? I worked on a project that was a collaboration between 2 professors. One of the professors created her own programming language, and it was a meta language called Poet. And the whole idea is that given the source code of any program, a C program, a C++ program, a Java program, a Python program, a Perl program, an assembly program, etc. Given the input of some program written in some arbitrary language, you could write a program in Poet, right? And the program in Poet, you could make do arbitrary AST, which is abstract syntax tree, as in the data structure that emerges during the compilation process or the interpreter process, whereupon the program scans your program, breaks it up into tokens, and then arranges it into a tree structure so that the code generator can actually step through the program in the correct order and evaluate what occurs and what code should be generated at every single point. And actually, there are things like multipass compilers, and there's so much shit. But like nowadays, most of the time, compilers will like target LLVM because it's a great intermediary. Like it's like a level above assembly code. It's almost like a meta assembly code. And if you wanted to make your own language, you should really set it up so that like you do code generation using LLVM IR, intermediary representation, because then you can target any CPU and now you have your own language. But okay, so Poet, right? Like take C program or any other program, write a Poet program that operates on the syntax tree of that first program, and then spit out a program in any other language. So it's a transcompiler. It's a meta compiler. And you could use it to create optimized programs. You could use it to create wrappers around other programs. You could use it to port programs from one language to another. That was really the primary intended purpose of it. But we used it in the context of this other professor's project, right? This other professor worked on a linear algebra matrix multiplication. It really was a linear algebra library, matrix multiplication being only one part of it. But the routines that I was tasked with testing or writing tests for was a matrix multiplication routine. And I learned something very interesting about the way that you need to go about testing in sort of high performance computing environments. One of the things that you need to do or be able to do is like figure out how to avoid the hardware level optimizations that occur when you're actually testing the performance of code. Because unless you're running on bare metal, you're going to get a lot of things on your system like system jitter. You're going to have like interactions from the UI, from the kernel, from a bunch of other shit that are going to effectively obfuscate or taint or mar or, just kind of like fuck up the timings and the performance results when you actually go to do performance testing to see like how fast that program runs. So what I figured out with some help was we had to bypass the CPU cache. So like, let's say you have two matrices, right? And those matrices are arranged as one-dimensional vectors. Now you have two 1D vectors. And you want to test the matrix multiplication on these two matrices. And the matrices themselves are generated from like random numbers. And so like there's no chance that you're going to get like the same input on a second run. So that's one level of optimization for like actually testing. But what we had to do was take those two vectors and actually create a lot of them. So like, let's say we wanted to create like, because the program ran so fast, we had to scale it up so that we could even perceptibly measure the performance, right? Because the program was running so fast. On just one iteration, you wouldn't be able to get a timing, like one that actually is useful. It was too small of a value. So what we had to do is like take that one timing on those two vectors and then generate like 10,000 vectors, right? And what we had to do was arrange them in a way where when we actually load each set of those vectors into the program, we did so backwards. And yeah, you did have defeated syntax rules of those other languages. You could use bigger matrices, but you wanted to also like do this from a number of different perspectives. Even if you created bigger matrices, you would still want to create like batches of them, because then you're only testing for like one particular size, right? So like we would create these batches of like m by n matrices that, you know, like we would pick different m by n values on every single run. So you could basically like input that into the testing program when you run it. Say, I want to generate vector like this size vector and this size vector, and we want like 1,000 of them, and we want to run this test like 20 times or something. So it was highly configurable, and actually the acronym POET stands for Parameterized Optimization of Empirical Tuning. So, you know, the whole goal being that like with tweaking these numbers from the top down, you could effectively find scientifically just through testing optimal values. So we had to load things in backwards, though. That's the real crux of this whole story, is that in order to bypass the CPU cache, which if you attempt to load a vector that big from the front, as in, you know, if you start like stepping through that big list of vectors that we created from like index 0, what actually ends up happening is that the CPU kind of attempts to get ahead of the game. And so instead of just loading like the first 2 vectors, it'll actually attempt to load like a lot of them and have them in the CPU cache so that they're ready for like immediate processing. But this is one of the things that obfuscates the proper result of the timing. So in order to bypass that, we actually had to step through that whole list backwards. So that's another thing, is that like you could also test it by like making vectors so big that they flood outside of the CPU cache. But even then, that also creates a bit of a distortion. You know, the size of the vectors, realistically, you want to be able to sit inside the cache. And I think we made them big enough so that they were like the size of the cache itself. Or I forget which level of cache, but you have L1 cache, L2 cache, L3 cache, and then you have your RAM. So the vector is being generated in RAM, and then when the actual matrix multiplication routine calls, pulls that shit from RAM into cache, and then eventually, you know, it starts operating things inside registers. Right. Like you could actually force the compiler to generate code in such a way as that the compiler doesn't optimize that as well. You can actually be very explicit and tell it to do things in a way where, like, if you have a list of 100 numbers, if you have like 2 lists of 100 numbers that are randomly generated, and then you generate 100 more of those, you can write a for loop that starts processing them from the back. And the compiler has to respect this because you're telling it to do this. But you also have to remember that the compiler doesn't really manage control of like the interface between the cache and the RAM, right? That's something that occurs at the hardware level. So like when you do like a memory load in assembly, or when the compiler generates a memory load, or whenever you like reference memory, there's a memory load that occurs. And this memory load at the hardware level, like when you go to reference something, will pull something from RAM into a cache, and it's totally transparent to us because of virtual memory addressing. Virtual memory is a mindfuck. Like, that was a big trip to realize that every program thinks that it has control over every byte in memory. That's kind of cool, but it's also kind of arrogant, because that's not actually what happens underneath the hood. You know, whenever you spawn up a new program, it's got page ability for, you know, all of your RAM if you really wanted to, but in practice, if you attempt to allocate more than you have available, the operating system's going to be like, nope, that ain't happening. It's been a while since I've run this, but this is my original LLM script that I used to chat with various LLM providers. I like this because it doesn't like make changes to my shit without me asking. So oh, so we actually need to do this like one more time. I mean, tools is good, like, don't get me wrong, but for situations like this, I want to have a chat only thing where I can ask specific questions separately from my tool interface. It would be so the problem here that I find is that this thing is making commits without like asking. I need it to be a bit more like prompting, because like when I asked it a question, it decided to just like automatically assume that I wanted to make those changes, which I do, but I also want to handwrite them. So like, all right, so we're back to square one. Everything works still. I don't necessarily hate agent mode, but and that's honestly one of the first times the aiders kind of fucked me up a little bit. It's otherwise been a pretty good experience. Oh yeah. Okay, so So I'm going to write a couple tooling functions to make like loading textures and setting up the animation system a little bit easier. One of the things I need to do is actually have mini textures loaded. And so I was asking it, how do I do that? I don't want to be string the texture though. Oh, here we are. I'll have to take a look at that setting then. I don't mind it committing when I want it to commit, so I don't want to like totally turn off all committability. So this is going to break code over here. There we go. That's what I want. There's another one as well. It is what do you call it? I think it's called Goose. Yeah. I gotta take a piss, y'all. Be right back. right. What was the last thing I wanted to do here? I think Clojure uses the Java VM, which is the reason I find it the most intriguing option with regards to using a Lisp-like. Yeah, Racket also seems like a interesting option. All those parentheses, though. Yeah. Let's make sure that change works. Okay, so far so good. Actually, I want the FPS to be drawn at the very top of the drawing stack. So after we draw our render texture. There we go. So yeah, it was getting stretched along with the render texture, which the whole idea is that you want to keep the render texture small, so that way you can stretch it to fit generally whatever size window it happens to occupy. And I'm using this as a technique to like get around having to deal with situations where people might have different size monitors, for instance, different screen resolutions. Some people might be playing it in a browser, not full screen. Some people might be playing it on a desktop, not full screen or full screen, you know. They might have a 4x3 monitor still, God forbid. I took Scheme when I was in third year. I survived, I can say that. I don't know that I necessarily liked it, but I managed to figure it out. I did my entire fucking Lisp shit using Nano. Meanwhile, Dulce over here got some like cracked out fucking beast mode editor setup. But like, I just don't, it's like I told him the other day, you know, for me, typing, like the big difference between like pleasure of typing between, let's take as an example the parentheses versus the brackets, right? I have to hit Shift 9. Oops, there we go. I have to hit Shift 9 and Shift 0 to do open close parentheses. I already have to use both hands, which kind of fucking sucks. And the open close parentheses are much further away from my home row hand position than the brackets. Further, I'm able to hit the brackets with my one finger over here. Observe. Oh, isn't that nice? God damn, that feels good. You mean to tell me I gotta type parentheses when I can just type brackets? Why can't we have a programming language where it's like Lisp-like, where it's like add 1, 2 like this? You know, like You know, something like that. Like, why can't we do this? We could even get crazy with it and do it like postfix. That shit's bananas. I did some vibe coding shit recently with a flashcard application that I want to make. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but Lisp stands for list processing, right? And also correct me if I'm wrong, but every data structure in Lisp is a list. Am I right? So, knowing that this is kind of like Python list syntax, and it's also like JavaScript list syntax, and you know, the equivalent of this in traditional Lisp would be something like maybe with like a, you know, a thing in front of it to like indicate that it's like a list of numbers. I see. Well, I mean, I almost feel like it creates a situation where if I were to create like my ideal Lisp-like language, I would almost have to do it myself. And I'd have to figure out some of these like syntax quirks, the kinds of features that I would want to support and all that kind of stuff. So it's totally doable in the future. Maybe not right now. I mean, I could do it right now, I just don't want to. There's other things that I want to do. Have you ever heard this joke? My other car is a cutter. Rust is beyond full featured. Rust has more than we could want. Just like C++. Ew. Really? That's gross. I don't know that I like that. I actually like cars. The idea of like chopping off the front of a list, chopping off the like remainder of the list. I like that. I don't know, I like using whole ass words to index into a list. That seems gross. What am I doing right now? Besides dicking around and doing nothing. Okay, so we just added hash map over here. but it's string. We don't want string. We want I32. So I32 is going to be our like texture ID. So one of the things that we're going to want to do that we didn't do here, or that we're not doing at the moment, oh, so this is like the return value. So where does game and init actually get called? Oh, this is actually exported. So maybe what we actually want to do is create a, well, shit. Maybe we're gonna have to like have a separate no mangle function that we export in order to like do that. So handle keys actually calls in get in game frame. So actually I kind of want to pull some of that stuff down. So that way down here would be to do handle drawing. And then this code could go in here. And that looks a lot cleaner here. And it moves, you know, the drawing code up into its own thing, which is great. Let's make sure that works. Okay, that's good. Take it easy, Mats. Have a good one. Thanks for joining. Appreciate that. Make sure to like and subscribe and check back to see me doing more dumbass shit like this. Okay. We had this problem where we called game init elsewhere. So it's actually pulled in right here, and this returns the game state. So realistically, we'd probably want to do any sort of texture loading like before we get here. So another way I feel like the init function should be slightly tweaked. Okay, I got the syntax wrong here. says it doesn't need to be mutable because it's unused. And it says that it built, or it didn't build, it like survived the check. Say origins never used. That's because we commented some of that stuff out. Yeah, that's fine. So we're actually going to load in a texture here. Oh, that's curious. Really? I have to take a fucking ampersand on that? Whoa. Someone help me out here. I'm crashing out. I think it's time for another smoke break. Take my girl out to do some business. This is good bud. Texas legal. Gotta say, Texas bud game is like fucking off the chain right now. Why isn't this working? The fuck? The fuck does this even mean? Oh man, really? Ew. Okay, so we got no expect that we can use. Okay, that's fine. It works. So now down here. Oh, that's why we have to unwrap it. Ew. Damn, that's awful. Well, we got it. Okay. So now loading the same texture from the hash map. That's a step forward. Okay, that's a good step forward. That's a good step forward. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. 8 pieces of information. But I can't find it for some reason. Why doesn't this work over here? Oh, wait. Oh, my dog just woke up. Hi, Grace. Ready to go do some business? I'm getting frustrated and flustered over here. It's probably about time to take a break, too. I need to take a note on where I'm leaving off before I do take a break, though. Alright guys, we're going to call it a day. You take it easy. Thanks for joining.